Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Puzzle Minds podcast. Our guest today is a good friend of mine, and she's been rocking with us since day one of this podcast. So, everyone, please give it up for Emily.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on. I think this will be a really good topic. This is a very spicy boy. Yeah, a very spicy boy.
I'm excited. Thank you for asking me to be on.
Yeah. So today's topic is brought to you by the letter R for relationships. We'll be talking about relationships and dating dynamics and how they've evolved and how modern day society standards and values have impacted on how we select our significant other.
All right. Cool. Seems like something that I can tackle reasonably enough.
We're all reasonably experienced in, right?
So, I'd like to think so.
I guess I kind of to kick it off. I guess the one thing that I've always been interested in is it seems like we've kind of streamlined dating to a certain degree. Because do you guys remember back in the day, like I guess from like middle school or high school, where there was like it seemed very organic in how you would eventually develop a relationship with somebody. You would find someone like, oh, I like that person. So you would establish like a connection with that person, right? Whether it's a friendship, and then you'd be considered. I guess the category would be talking. Because I remember talking was like, that's not your boyfriend or girlfriend, but it's someone of interest that other people know you're interested in.
Yeah, or like you have a thing.
Yeah, there's a thing, right? Yeah, exactly. We'll perforate the thing. So there's a claim on this person without, I guess, technically real, it's weird, like the thing category. Then you move on to there was always that point where there's a question where you have to ask, do you want to be like my boyfriend or be my girlfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like none of that exists anymore, where we've made it more complicated in the sense of like, okay, we like each other. So, and then eventually people ask, well, what are we? And then they're like, oh, I guess we're monogamous, and then that's it. So where the hell did the middle go?
So now that you mentioned that, I feel like it's a part of what generation you are, because I feel like with me personally, I feel like I still kind of followed those like synchronized steps. But do you think that like nowadays, the way that the generation is, do you think that question of do you want to be my girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever it is, the first time that question is asked is when someone else asks it?
I don't even think it's asked. I think we've gotten to the point where everyone's so scared to ask it. The way in which you ask it has changed also. And also, if it is asked at all, it's just very odd. It's just one of those things where you hang out with a person long enough to be like, okay, I guess we're acting like, we're monogamous. So I might as well verify with that other person if we are. If so, then cool. Continue as usual.
I agree, but I think the questions come across differently. I don't think it's ever asked like, oh, will you be my girlfriend or would you be my boyfriend? I think it's more like, are you seeing anyone else, or would you rather be doing something else, or like, is this okay? Or it's more questions like that to like beat around it and get to what it is.
Yeah, so it's not asking directly like, hey, are we a thing? Mm-hmm. Are you doing something else that I would not be okay with, pretty much?
Yeah, or is it okay if I do something else, or would you not like that?
So essentially we've transitioned from having to write a note saying, hey, will you go out with me? Box 1 says yes, box 1 says no.
Exactly.
To this one is, are you talking to that bitch or not?
It's kind of like, more or less, yeah, because the question is never asked with the intention of wanting to hear anything other than, no, we're a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I agree, because I feel like the person who's asking wants to hear the yes and the no. If you're not asking, you don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
So do you think things like maybe social media have changed that? Because I also remember there are so many different rules now when it comes to social media's integration into relationships. Like there's like a step now where you guys are dating, right? Then there has to be like the social media presence of letting the world know you're dating, which is a brand new thing.
Yeah.
It's relatively new within the last 5 to 10 years, where Facebook needs to know that, so-and-so in a relationship, or you need to post your significant other X amount of times a week on Instagram. Otherwise that person might be pissed.
Yeah.
Dude, that whole...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So that whole thing is so stupid. It's like everyone's like, oh, well, is it Facebook official? Like that's a new thing. And I mean, I don't know, maybe that people haven't said that recently, but I feel like back then, aka like a few years ago, they would be like, hey, are you guys Facebook official? Like that's the way that people ask, hey, are you guys like officially dating? Like for whatever
Like, have you
reason.
put it out there for the world to see it?
Yeah. And so that's why is that a thing? Like, hey, are you guys Facebook official?
I think it's more of a thing. So like, that's how you let people know. Like that if you're communicating with other people through social media and that's like how you're doing a lot of your communicating, then that's how you would allow people to know that about you. Like before all the social media at all, you wouldn't have anywhere to post like, we are dating or I'm in a relationship with this person. So you have to interact with people in real life to talk to them and to share that information. Whereas with social media, you take away the interaction. So you take away that knowledge about you.
Would you say there was even a need to back in the day? Because it seems like this was a new rule that was added. That's the thing that like what John is saying. I'm like, yeah, like I don't remember where it became a requirement because I guess the more social media is integrated into your life, the more it is a requirement for that person. Because the times I've seen it, the times I've seen it being brought up as an issue, for example, is when it's like, oh, the person's on Facebook all the time or on Instagram all the time or Snapchat. So is it more because these are different ways that infidelity can happen? Where people like now, like people, it's a new way for back in the day. It's like when before, let's say pre-MySpace days, like before all that, where you would just, I don't even know, you would tell. Like people would ask, like, "Are you dating anyone?" You'd be like, "Yeah," and they'd be like, "What's the person's name?" Bob. And okay, cool. That's all the information they needed. Yeah. Or you'd bring them to a function, right? Like, oh, we're going to hang out at the bar or barbecue or whatever. Oh, hey, who's this new person I see you hanging around with? So and so. But now, like you said perfectly, our new ways of communication have created this new rule now where it's like, I guess if you don't have a big social media presence, you don't have to, but it seems like it's mainly used as a new parameter to kind of like keep people in check because, I guess, with all the good and bad that comes with social media, it also can make relationships a little bit more complicated because It seems like if you're married to somebody and they they made a point of never letting anyone know on their social media outlets that they're married to you, that's a thing now, right? Like you'd feel
I don't know, I guess. Like,
as a married man, I don't really do that type of stuff. I don't really do social media in terms of I don't really post anything. Like people, for me at least, the way I look at it, the people that need to know that I'm in a relationship and with my wife are the ones that know. Like I don't need to be broadcasting it out to everyone because the people that matter to me most already know that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that social media is just. I just hate it. I mean, I use it. It's almost unavoidable, which isn't true. But I use it, but I hate it. I think it's evil. I think it's just this weapon for friends and enemies alike to use against you in all different sorts of ways, like endless, countless ways. And I think that what John's touching on, like the people who need to know about me, they do know. And social media is not really his thing. He doesn't really post. I used to post a lot. I don't really anymore. So a younger me would want everything posted, like, because that's what I did. Like I communicated everything through that. I've grown up. I don't really care to post about my life anymore. No one really needs to know what I'm doing all the time or what I'm wearing or any of that random information I don't need to share. So I don't need to be sharing about my relationship. But if I were someone who was always posting and always all on social media, then I would think that who I'm in a relationship would be like, why am I never posted if I didn't put anything about them? You know what I mean? I feel like at that point, it looks like you're
like hiding something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the whole thing too. Like where do your values lie with social media? If you're active and you use that as a way to keep people updated, then that I think the expectation from everyone is that if you're always posting, you should be posting. I mean, it's not that it's required, but it would look very suspicious if everything you're posting is not about your significant other.
Yeah, like post everything you do, everyone you hang out with, but just like hide that you're in a relationship from that. It doesn't make sense, you know?
If you're
That's
being
like,
open about your life, then you should be open about that portion that is also a significant part of your life. So to go out
yeah.
of your way to not let people know that if you're an active poster seems like that's another element that, now it's complicated. They're complicated dating relationships all to begin with now. Because I'm sure they're probably like, as dumb as it sounds, there are probably some people that have broken up or even, I don't know, divorced over social media related things.
Because there's all kinds of problems. Like I said, social media is like this, it's like this horrid weapon. It can be used in there's so many different ways. For instance, like, I don't know where I was going with that. Okay, for
Do you
instance,
think? Do you
if
think
someone,
that?
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Okay,
Do
so
do
if
you,
someone likes a photo, sorry, John, if you're in a relationship with someone and they're liking a photo that's clearly like a thirst trap or just something
Exactly. There we go.
something like that's just something that's out of character, or like they're clearly liking it for certain reasons, and this is just from a girl's perspective. I guess I wouldn't really know how a guy would look at that. But for a girl's perspective, it's like, I know that people post that. I know you're going to look at it. I know you're going to like it. And I don't care about any of those things. Like, I know you enjoy seeing that. It's fine. But like, we're all grown up, so you see it everywhere. What pisses me off would be if someone took that opportunity to put out there and tell that person who posted it, hey, I enjoyed this. Like, liking it or putting that out there is totally different, because it's a matter of, first of all, egging on the person who posted something so provocative and being like, I'm into this, but more importantly, disrespecting someone who you'd be in a relationship with who doesn't want to see that. Like, I know you're looking at it and you like it, but I don't want to see that you
want to see the person actively doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to watch it in front of me. I don't want to be scrolling through my feed. Now, that doesn't happen to me. It's not like something that it's just like, it's just it's shocking to me, the social media, how many levels there are to things that can be wrong about it.
Do you think that back in the day, someone like, I think today had mentioned that, people have broken up over social media. Do you think like back in the day, someone had broken up with someone because they weren't on their like top 8 for MySpace?
Dude, honestly, that was serious back in the day, man. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it was like, there was like a very hierarchy, like, atmosphere whenever someone was on their top 8. You felt like you were like the king or queen, and you were like top dog shit.
Well, MySpace was different.
Is it okay for me to ask you guys how old you are?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm
28, 29. Wait, what year is it? Yeah, so I'm 29, I think. Yeah.
Forgot. But yeah,
dude, I don't know, man. Anything after
so fucked up. I don't know how old I am.
No, anything after like 25, I don't know. For me, at least, like they all run together.
Okay.
I'm between 29 and 78.
So I'm 23. I didn't have MySpace. It didn't exist when I started using it.
Oh, well, so you didn't come into the thing when MySpace. Okay, so MySpace. Oh, so let's run it back. Let's do a little bit of a history.
Shit.
Well, I was the first person on Facebook, so.
Oh, so you okay? This is interesting. I'm actually interested in this discussion.
Okay.
I remember when Facebook used to be the most boring thing to me, because
MySpace
was all about the customization of showing. Because MySpace was focused on showing your personality through your profile.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamics of, I guess, creating an image about who you are started, I think, with, I want to say Instagram, because I don't even remember Facebook being like that. Because MySpace, the top 8 component was more about friends. I don't think MySpace had a real cultural impact on dating or anything like that.
No, I don't think so either. Facebook
was the first time I think people started really focusing on, like, because people never said MySpace official. It was always like,
did MySpace like tear people apart?
Well, I guess that was my question. Like, so to do had to, like, people had broken up over social media, and so I don't know. There has to be cases, but I think it would be more so Facebook. Explain to me how the
top 8 worked.
Okay, so so MySpace is, like what Tadeo said, a customization thing where you could put music on your page and people would listen to it like a playlist. You could customize your background, and then they had this feature called Top 8. And so on your page that you displayed to everyone, there were 8 people that you wanted to recognize, I guess. And so everyone, like, you had your whole friends list that I think you had to click see all. I think I don't know. It's been
You have your general friends list. Yeah, 'cause
yeah,
you know, like how
but
many
then
you had. Then you had the elite crew, which were like
yeah.
the 8.
So these 8 would always be on your page, no matter like every time someone would click on your profile, they would always see those 8. If they wanted to see any of the people outside of your 8, they would have to click like see all. So
Oh,
essentially, it was like a status symbol per se.
And yeah, and I think they really put an emphasis on the importance of even the order of the 8. Like your number
Yeah.
one
Mm-hmm.
was like, I guess technically your best friend. Because I'm
Yeah.
a person
my
who believes
God.
in plural best, because like I'm like, if you have a best friend, that implies one person above all. So when people say I have a group of best friends, I'm like, it makes no sense. One person has to be superior. But
Think of how heartbreaking it would be to be on nobody's list.
that's exactly what happened. Where that tension, it did happen. Like if you really wanted to let somebody know that, like, yo, I'm fucking mad at you, or I'm
You
like,
remove them from your top 8. Oh my
you
God,
remove
that's
it,
so
or you
petty.
can
I love
demote
it.
somebody. I'm actively an aggressive, like an offender of this, where I'm like, yo, I'm pissed at somebody. You went from 3 to 4, dude. Like, fuck you, bro.
Oh
You
my
know,
God,
like you,
that's
that was
amazing.
the thing. So MySpace was like the ancestor to all the things we see now, because Facebook, I honestly think what we're talking about now in terms of like a social media infecting relationships started with Instagram. Because
Mm.
Instagram is when all that, like what Emily was just talking about, where if you see like your significant other that liking somebody else's photo, like that became a thing. Because remember at one point in Instagram, you could see what other people liked. They actually took that away now, I believe, because I honestly do think it was causing problems. Where if I like the photo, you could go to, I forget what it was, I guess like your follower column and see what this person liked. So like Emily was saying, it's like I think we always knew that, like, obviously that like we're all attracted to different things. If you see, a beautiful person walking down the street, obviously you probably know that, like, you're like, that person probably is like, damn, that person's hot. But that's in your head.
Right. Don't put it out there. But more
Yeah.
importantly, to me, liking something, it's not even so much to me, like, again, this is just another level. It's not even so much to me about, like, hey, I like this, but you're not just liking it and, like, saving that to things that you enjoy. It's not doing anything for you to like that. What you're doing is attaching your name to whatever that photo is forever. Like, you put your name on that. You know
So
what
I
I
guess,
mean?
Mm.
yeah, it's like, so it's kind of shifted where I guess like there is the negative sides of it, but also there's the positive where, for example, there are probably some people that have been brought together by social media. Because like if you think about the way dating used to be back in the day, kind of going back to the ancient early 2000 days of asking people, are we a thing? How would you keep track of what what a person was doing, or like, I guess, a person's interests, when before you could visually see it on social media, or like Facebook? Remember they used to have that section where, I think they still have it, where it says like, this person is interested in, I don't know, Lincoln Park, and I don't know, like baking, some random shit like that. So now you know things about a person prior to even having to hear that from that person, which I think
Mm.
shifts dating. Because when you go on a date, what is it about? Getting to know somebody. So that whole dynamic of now starting to know things prior to meeting a person started with social media, and it's helped and crippled simultaneously.
I think that's true. I don't think I've ever. I mean, I was on Facebook in middle school, right? Like 6th grade. So that's when I started like having, boyfriend-ish
Yeah.
relationships. And I can say with confidence, I don't think I've ever dated someone or had a thing with someone without at first looking at like their social media or first seeing a social media profile or presence somewhere. I don't think I've ever just generically met and started dating someone without that social media presence in there at some point.
So
Did you look at that? Did you look at that tab where like what Titi was talking about? How they like such and such. They like plants. They love Tom Jones. Like, did you ever look at that when you were
No. Photos,
just
statuses,
photos?
sometimes I guess friends, like mutual friends,
Mm-hmm.
see,
But a
that's what
lot of the time I had already met them generically. Like I already knew them. It's not like I'm meeting them in social media.
Mhm.
It's just that
But you
I
get to
never
know them on social media.
I like would check out their social media, see like, okay, what does this person do on the weekends? What are they posting photos of? Like what kind of,
Mm.
it's almost like a deeper look at like what kind of person is this? It's like a free background check.
Exactly. I mean, that's the
And
part that's saying that. At what point did that become the norm? Because we're talking about it like it's the norm. Prior, there was a point where this was not the norm, where you had to get to know a person by physically being around them. Like, to know that this person likes anime or video games, or his favorite movie is this, you would ask that person, or you would. But I'm wondering when did we transition to like you said, the background check prior to the hanging out, because that's a precursor now.
Yeah,
It's
I think it all just came with the development of social media, really. I think it all just kind of rolled in together, because the more I think about it, like you said, back in the day or whenever, people wouldn't have a way of knowing like, what is this person doing right now when I'm not with them, or like what are they doing at other times, And I think that comes down to like trust. And I feel like I see everywhere, everyone has trust issues. This is why trust issues are such a problem. And it's like, social media is one of the reasons. It's because you have access to see so much. Like you said earlier, you can see what other people like. We used to have that access, and it's like anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that, if nobody could see what other people were looking at or liking, that it just wouldn't exist, and no one would have that issue with people liking certain things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But then,
almost maybe stop some relationships that could have been born as a result of maybe seeing something they didn't like. That's the thing that I've always been like, man, how many relationships do you think never happened as a result of maybe that person being like, oh, I was into this person, but I found out that they like such and such, and I don't like it. Maybe that's just a fragment of an otherwise beautiful personality, but you saw a portion of something, and now an entire relationship will never even be born.
But if you think about it, social media and like Facebook, stuff like that, people post their best. People don't post their worst on there.
Right.
So they're
well, some people do, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
I also think it's a shift, though, another shift as well, where that it's become a flex contest now. Because that's earlier on, social media wasn't that. It wasn't like that. It was about just posting whatever. Like on Facebook, or like early Facebook days, it was about just being able to
connect
just
with like people and stuff like that.
It truly was about connection. I think in its earlier days, we did really use it that way. But
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Right now in your life, what is social media to you? Like, what does it offer you? What does it do for you?
For me, it's more so for, like in terms of like Facebook, like I use that for promoting and stuff like that. Not on my personal page, but more so for groups that are related to podcasts. In terms of Instagram, it's more so for, like I don't really use mine either. And I have social media for my dog. So shout out Levi. But, I don't use it. And I can admit that when I was younger, I used to use that as that quote flex. I'd be like, oh shit, look what I'm doing, like look what I'm wearing, like that's what I used to use it for. But nowadays, I don't use it for that. It's more so if it doesn't benefit me in a way that I can excel myself, like not spiritually, but like mentally and like physically and whatever it is. Like if it can help me, then I'm gonna use it. But I'm not gonna use it to flex on people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I was more along the lines of kind of the similar way. Like earlier on, like especially in college, because I got onto a lot of things pretty late. I had Facebook at a relatively, I guess, current time, like when everyone caught the wave. But I was one of like the last people on MySpace. I was one of those guys, still like, gotta change my song on my page, bro. So people know I'm like Linkin Park. But when I got on the Facebook, it was actually as a result of like pretty much the entire wave on there. So the people I wanted to stay in contact with were on Facebook. And then Facebook kind of became a way of me keeping contact with my friends. So, and then also posting funny statuses and stuff like that. Like I used to just have this urge to just post funny things, just reckless things, say whatever. Like if you go back 5-6 years and see some of the things I posted, I'm like, why the hell would I post that online? Like me nowadays, I'd be like, how would I post it? Not that I wouldn't say those things, but seeing how social media can really influence someone's life, you're like kind of like, damn, I was kind of reckless. Instagram is a little bit different. Initially, I think it was kind of like what John was saying, for me was to flex when I was back in college. And then I got into cosplay, and now I just use it to promote the things I'm really into, whether it's artwork or, like my, building cosplays and stuff like that. But I think if I didn't have it for a specific reason now, I probably would be off of it, because I think it's less beneficial to have it than to have it nowadays.
Yeah, I agree with that. I use social media for a couple reasons. I think that I agree with all the points that both of you made, that like it's basically just a flex contest. It doesn't add any value or anything really enriching to anyone's life. For me, social media is a research tool. Because I don't really have platforms I'm trying to promote. And it's also a catalog. So if I don't post things very often, but if I do, it's mainly, I'm trying to pull up my Instagram page right now because I don't even remember what's on there. I don't remember what I last posted. It's mainly like a personal catalog for my own memories. Like if I have like one really good picture that's like, oh, I remember that. Like I'm looking at a picture of St. Patrick's Day and I'm thinking about everything that happened that day. Like that's a really cool memory for me. So it's kind of like one consistent online catalog that I can look at and see, I don't know, things that I enjoyed. I mean, I'll be honest. I look at my own Instagram page more than I look at anybody else's. Maybe that's like a self-obsession problem, but
it's a history book. It's like looking at a photo album. Like looking at how I looked
so
back.
my wife does that, and I when she started posting, I never understood why. I was like, why are you sharing with these people? And
I don't care who looks at it, who likes it. I like to look at mine.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she said. She said it was for her personal use. It's like you kind of said, like a photo book of memories.
It's like a little gallery of
not
mine.
More so for anyone else, but more so for her and for me. And when I heard that, I was like, well, that makes a lot more sense. And I was a little bit more understanding of why she posted.
Yeah, it's like my favorite little thing. So like, I don't know. I have a picture of the floor of Steak and Shake. Like, who cares about that? Who's gonna like that? And I remember, but to me, like, I remember that day. That day was my last. I used to do visuals for my job when I lived in Indiana, and we would go to Steak and Shake every time we had a big visual change at the end of the night at like midnight. And that was my last time doing it before I moved to Charlotte. So I took a picture of it. No one else would know that or care, but to me, it's like, I don't know. That's kind of my purpose. You know what I mean?
It triggers a memory. It triggers. So social media can have like good impact. Like you can have like a good impact, or like I guess you say a negative impact. But social media inherently in itself is not good or evil. It's just how we use it. So they kind of like, I guess, kind of move on from this. So I guess like why? So I guess kind of one thing I've also been interested in is the parameters in which we put on our partners nowadays, right? So when you're dating someone, I think there's a dog outside that is fighting for its life. Sorry, guys. It's very weird. But so I guess the one also now with the way social media has changed dating, how do you guys feel about like, let's get into the taboo subject of cheating and things like that? So I feel like with the invention of like I guess social media, it's also created new avenues for new problems to happen in relationships. So we talked about the whole posting your partner on social media. So before I guess if you didn't tell somebody you were married or in a relationship, someone could use the argument is that I'm just a private person, right?
Right.
So now with all these other avenues where you can almost just more or less build an online persona, there are all these things like you were talking about before, like the thirst traps, where like some people post these things to purposely get somebody's attention.
Yeah, see what likes they can get and who can like it. And like more power to them that's what empowers them. Everyone's entitled to be empowered and feel good about themselves in whatever way.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of the person on the other end, the receiving end, who's seeing it and their actions towards that. Does that make sense?
Do you think that now it's necessary social media, or not even social media, but like I guess dating now has things that now can be exploited? So I've always wondered how many people do you think could have actually, probably lived happy ever after, or had a very, flourishing relationship if certain things didn't influence the relationship. Like maybe you talked to being a little bit too friendly to somebody online that you shouldn't have, and then now the seed of, some maybe necessarily like cheating or things like that.
Yeah, or that seed of mistrust is there.
Exactly. Or somebody, it would not have been there if the person didn't have an Instagram or the person didn't have Facebook. So now with like, I guess, for example, with when you're earlier on when you're dating somebody, the parameters are very loose, right? Like there's always that weird stage where you first become, let's say, monogamous.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it's like there were clean cut rules, right? Like it was like I've always been under understanding if you can't show it to the person you're with, you probably shouldn't be saying it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good golden rule.
Yeah, it's a good, pretty much your rule 101.
Yeah, if you wouldn't be saying it right in front of them, like.
So how do you think those things have changed now? Because now I've been hearing about this term called an emotional affair, where somebody basically, I guess the way to describe it would be like somebody is with a person, but is almost developing emotions that are inappropriate for somebody else. And I think nowadays, like that's a part of like relationships that's kind of changed. Where I think maybe a couple of years ago, that's just called flat out cheating. Like, wait, you are attracted to this person? That would be cheating, right? But nowadays, it's like I guess are millennials a little bit more hedonistic in the sense of like you're allowed to tell your partner, hey, that person's attractive, but you don't act on that emotion. So is that something that has changed also as well too, or do you guys still feel like no, it's still clean cut and dry, like there were clean cut boundaries?
So that whole emotional, what did you say again? Emotional what?
Emotional, I
Cheating?
guess, cheating or emotional infidelity, or however you want to say it.
So I guess you could look at it in the sense of, if you are with someone that you should be fully committed 100% emotionally, physically, and mentally. And so, if we define emotional cheating as thinking of someone else while you're with someone, then I guess you could say that's emotional cheating if I'm understanding it correctly.
See, I disagree. I feel
Okay.
like thinking of someone else while you're with someone is not something that's like explicitly okay. I don't think it's cheating though. I think definitely it's something that if that comes up, be an adult and have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's explicitly cheating. I think it can happen and does happen, I'm sure, but I think cheating is like an actionable on purpose kind of thing. So
But you
So
said
is it
while
a
that can be
physical
on purpose,
thing? A
so
physical
you're more
thing.
the physical.
no, not even necessarily physical, because emotional cheating I think is real too. And I think what you were saying earlier is 100% the way to go. That you shouldn't be saying anything that you couldn't be saying with the person you're with sitting right next to you to
Yeah.
anyone. But
It seems
if
like we
you're
live in
saying
a hybrid.
anything and you second guess it, or you think would they like this or would they not, and that social media is a presence, so obviously they're not going to be standing over your shoulder reading it all the time. But if that thought comes into your head after you've said something, I think the way to avoid that continuing or being emotional cheating is to be an adult and have a conversation about it. Like, go to that person and say, hey, I said this, is that okay?
Seems like I've always felt like we've had looser standards nowadays when it comes to these things, because our society is everything's very sexual nowadays. Have you noticed like everything is just sexually charged up?
Yeah,
And I
everything.
wonder, are we kind of numb to it? Because like you said, it's like it's not. You said that you wouldn't consider it flat out cheating, and that's the thing. Also, as well, too. I'm like, man, like we have, I guess, more explanations for a lot of things, like in this day and age. Like I've always thought about this, like actors and actresses. How do they really have a relationship when you see, like, for example, like obviously it's part of your job. Let's say you're like, I don't know, you're playing like a superhero role. You're Stephen Amell from Arrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blatantly hooking up with, obviously other women on the show, but it's part of his role.
Mm.
So I've always wondered how that plays a role in a person's relationship.
Yeah, I have too, because I couldn't do that. Like, when I think about it, I'm also a person who's really invested, though. So I wonder if it's totally a personality thing. Because for me, like, I am very whether it's friendships or family relationships or a romantic relationship, I become very invested and it's important to me, and I work hard to maintain it. So seeing something like that, even if it's just like a picture or a movie or whatever, or their job, it's like, I
Yeah.
don't like that. It's like, I don't even think I could see something that was said, like just words, That's
Yeah.
Wait, so
I
so would like looking at a script that said like the guy says "I love you" to like another fellow actor, would that?
no, I don't think a script, like something that was given them, like,
Mhm.
here, you have to say this,
Mhm.
But if they generically said that to somebody else, even just like say in a text message, or I don't know, like they wrote him a note or something. I don't know if the words I think would have to be real, but I think for it to bother me, the words would have to be real. But I think if I even just saw like a movie or something, that would bother me even if I knew it wasn't real.
Yeah. So that's the interesting part that I think I've always wondered. What do actors and actresses have in their mentality when it comes to dating and marriage that I guess us regular folk don't have? Because even for me, for example, like if I saw my girlfriend in a movie and I knew, like, let's say it's a romantic movie, and like I know, like, dude, there's a scene where she got an Academy Award for this role, but she got her back blown out. I don't want to see it. Damn it, she got an Oscar for this, but it's hard to see, right? So there are some actors that actually, I think it was Jason Momoa explicitly is the one that says he actually doesn't watch any of his wife's like films and stuff like that, because typically that tends to be like, obviously those are the roles that she always takes, but like there are a lot of roles she takes that have like these sexually charged up situations.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, you are invested in this person, you love this person. This person is invested in you, but this is their crowd. This is their, like their skill set, I guess, acting, and they're really convincing. So at what point, how are they able to separate it versus us, where is it just a matter of us just not being able to be in that space? Because let's say you're in an occupation that you kind of have to flirt a little bit, like bartenders. That's a field where if you're a very boring bartender, you're not going to make that much money.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're one of those bartenders, like, flirtation with your customers, you're going to make a lot of money. On top of maybe if you're good looking also as well too. So let's say, for example, like let's bring it down to a level that maybe I guess we're on, right? We're on, like, let's say, for example, you're dating someone that's a bartender. How much they make is very dependent on them having to have some of these looser parameters we're talking about, where they tell you, hey, I am in love with you, but I kind of have to go and flirt with these other people, otherwise I'm not going to get that extra $10 to $15. How does that work?
I don't know. Are you using that extra $10 to $15 to buy me dinner? Can you get another job? No, honestly, I think that's gonna happen, and I think I don't want to say, oh, that's fine, but you got to do what you got to do to get by in this world. And here's where the line is. If you're doing that to get your tip, fine. But if you're doing that and then it's going further, or you're conversing outside of your job, or you're doing more than you need to quote unquote get that tip, like
another
that's
tip.
where you're
gonna get another tip. It's not gonna be the one you want.
Sorry. That's where you're stepping over the line. If you're doing, like, if you're letting it escalate, like if you're in a relationship and you're, say, a bartender and you're going in for a shift and you're flirting it up with somebody, and this person's like, oh my gosh, I really like this person, and they give you their phone number or whatever, the question is, are you going to say, hey, I'm actually seeing someone, but thanks? Or are you going to use that phone number and be like, oh, this might be something that I can explore also? Yeah. It all depends on your intentions and where you go with it.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is, if you have to flirt for that extra tip, you're using it to fulfill like a basic need need in the sense of trying to feed yourself, trying to put shelter on your home. Anything that's after that, fulfilling that basic need, is where it starts to get like muddy.
Yeah.
So let's go with the age-old person we already know who's made a whole career off of just basically throwing their ass out there, Kim Kardashian. She's a married woman, but can we fault her where she built an empire on her sexuality? Like literally an empire.
Yeah, so no, good for her.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. So like when we celebrate like someone like Kim Kardashian, she's a married woman, has kids, but she's also made a career off of, dudes probably, fapping over her with how she promotes herself. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's also, I think it comes down to those looser dating standards, because I think a modern man can probably deal with that versus back in the day. I don't think back in the day that existed. People almost think that it's very odd, right? Like even like people that dated maybe like Playboy models, like how can you date a person that's putting it all out there? So think maybe our dating standards have become less possessive, where as long as you know that person is emotionally invested in you, that's the most important thing. So maybe that's the reason why things are a little bit looser when it comes to some of these other things. When you know that, like, no matter what she does or what he does, his or her heart is with me. But also, I think that's the part where I've always been wondering, like, when did this happen? Because it seems like we just went from one thing to another. That's kind of been like the revolving theme of this whole discussion, where it's like we're just thrown into it. Now we're just used to it. Like at one point, remember Tinder? Tinder was a taboo around online dating. Now it's just like, okay, that's cool. Where was the transition? Zero transition. I wasn't there for. I don't remember it. I remember the days that like you would have to hide if you were online dating, because there was like, what, you can't go out in public and meet a regular person? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, so that
And now it's like everyone meets that way.
Now it's more common. People are like, wait, you went on an actual date? Like you met a person at a bookstore, talked to that person?
You have a real story? You did something actually?
Yeah, like a lot of people probably lie about how they met now. But like they probably did meet on Tinder, Facebook, Instagram, versus, you know, like the organic one, it's switched. But when was the transition?
Yeah, that's actually funny that you say that, because I do know someone that actually did meet off of like one of those dating sites, but said that they met through like another avenue. Like,
okay, they lied about it, more or less.
Wait,
yeah.
was it me?
No. No.
I don't lie to people who I'm like friends with about that, but like my parents aren't okay with that. So I've like told my parents a slightly different story, but it's just because they're a little protective.
If you don't mind, you're talking about it. Why do you do that? Or are you feel uncomfortable with?
Oh, why do I tell my parents? Wow.
Well, not your parents, but just like why? Like obviously, if you're comfortable talking about it, why do you feel the need to have to change? I mean, you're happy
for them. Yeah. It's not even so much a need to change. It's just like a convenience factor for me, really. Like I could tell them and I'm sure they would be fine. But my mom she gets real worried, and she would be like, oh my gosh, to her, it's not normal yet, you know? So she would it would freak her out that I met someone from the internet. She would think I'm absurd, you know?
Isn't it more dangerous to meet a random stranger in public and be like, they look okay, let's go on a date, you know?
Right. Like that's how I feel now. Like at least now I can, if I'm using like a dating app or website or whatever, I can look into them. Like I said, social media to me is a research tool, you know. I get knowledge from there, and that's what I use it for. So I feel like I think that's my reason that I kind of keep that from them. It's just that I don't need their annoying comments about it. Like I know how they feel about it. I respect how they feel about it, and so I'm not gonna throw it in their face because they don't need to know.
It almost seems like it is like you said, it's a legitimate background check. If you were to compare the two, the classic style dating, let's say like, you know, Generation X to Generation Y style dating, let's put the, you know, social media age of dating. You know more about the person prior to actually ever physically encountering them than you do with the previous style, which would technically make it safer. If I know that this person, I just saw this person like a post that might have been pretty aggressive about, I don't know, how to dump a body on Instagram, I may not want to go and hang out with this person. Versus I found that out while I'm with the person. Like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, I'm really into, you know, how to make a murderer. You know, I'm really into serial killer documentaries. Like, wait a fuck, what
like,
the hell?
Oh great, you were supposed to take me home.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I need to get a ride.
But it's what we're.
I think you're right. The last person I dated, before my current relationship, I did not meet on social media, but I didn't start dating them. So I guess what I said earlier about how I don't think I've actually dated or been involved with someone who I didn't see on social media first. I met them at a college campus, and they just wouldn't leave me alone. I was in a bad mood, and I was like just humoring them. And they were like, it was like the most casual thing. It was so weird. But now that I talk about it, I know it used to be normal. He just was like, do you want to go like get dinner after this? And as I'm waiting in line to get my campus parking pass, smooth, right?
That used to be called a determined person. I mean, that used to be romantic back in the day.
Well, yeah, I thought. I mean,
1940s.
Back in 1918, you know, never taking no for an answer was called romance.
Yeah, so I told him, I was like, I guess, because I'm like, I'm gonna get dinner anyway, whatever. And he was like, okay, listen. So he was like, so I just got dropped here. He had just gotten out of the military. He was like, I just got dropped off here, so I don't have a car with me. I was like, first thing in my head, I was like, why are you waiting in this line then? And I was like, no, you're not getting in my car, was the first thing I thought of. I don't know you. And then I also thought, oh my God, what a loser. He doesn't have a car.
You want to go on a trip with me, but I have to take you to the date.
You what? Yeah, so yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not doing that. So he was like, I totally get that and I respect that. And I was like, oh, okay. It's kind of weird, but whatever. And he just wouldn't leave me alone. Anyway, he ended up getting a ride to I don't remember where we went, to wherever we went, and I drove separately to wherever we went.
Damn.
Because you're right. It's dangerous to meet someone. Like, that's such a weird situation. I don't know anything about you. I've never seen you. Like, sure, I can sit at a table in a public place with you, but you're not getting in my car.
That's
Hold up. I think you have some technical difficulties.
Okay.
To Devo. So I guess he has technical difficulties, but so you were talking about dangerous things, and I know this is kind of like on a different level in
just
terms
giving you
of
things that were like considered red flags, right? And you're like, wait,
hold up, go back again because I think we had technical difficulties.
I think you cut out like one word into responding what I just said.
Oh, so what I was saying was, if you want to compare the two, like I don't understand the stigma that initially was attached to online dating, other than it's just something new. Because if you compare the two, online dating is probably your safer bet, and you're literally matching compatible traits. Because I wish there was some sort of like massive data sheet where you can compare like how many people actually had a happy relationship, happy marriage for X amount of time, and they met online versus people that just met random. Because when you meet a random stranger, all you're basing it off of, I mean, whether people want to admit it or not, is a few words. So maybe we have a connection and how the person looks. That's really what it is.
So that's what's cool kind of about like talking to each other online is okay, this all just came full circle. When we were saying earlier that there's like they're talking phase, that phase still exists. It just exists through the internet and can exist with multiple people at a time, and it's not offensive anymore.
Plot twist. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
So
it's still there.
I don't think it's as serious as the talking to phase used to be, but now like we're talking can mean like, oh, we started chatting, because that talking to phase from before where you initially met, exchanged a few words, were physically attracted, whatever, that's what got you to that talking stage. Now your talking stage is your first interactions, you're talking online.
So how would you describe your talking phase if you're, so let's say, for example, you're online, and it doesn't have to be even a dating site, but you're talking to a guy for whatever reason you met, let's say on Instagram or Facebook. Are you
or like christianmingle.com?
Well, not even Christian Mingle, because I think that's a dating website, because you're already talking to somebody with the intention of seeing if you want to date them. I'm talking more about
I just want to mingle.
Yeah, you're just mingling, you're just chatting with people. Because dating implies you're doing it to multiple people. Because the dating also got redefined, where dating means that like I'm with one person now. I'm like, when did that change? Because dating technically means I hate using a word in a definition, but I'm dating around until I find one person to be monogamous with.
I think dating is different from dating around, but it shouldn't be. Like what you're saying is correct, but in my head and the way I hear it, I'm dating someone means I'm dating only them, but I'm dating around means I'm dating around. If I hear that out of someone's mouth, I'm just thinking I'm not getting dates is what they mean.
Okay, they're jumping around. Right? So technically you're so if you're with one person, you're in a relationship.
Yeah, hearing I'm dating to me, like, or I'm dating someone, to me means you're committed to somebody. You're in a relationship.
So here comes an interesting question. I have a question for both of you guys. What if you found out the person you're really into, right? Mm-hmm. You got really into each other, everything's going well, and now you guys are officially in a relationship, and then that person tells you, I was dating other people, but I chose you because I liked you the best. You guys are happy now. Would that offend you at all?
Oh my God! Right now,
I like you the best.
I don't know, because I feel like
remember dating means you're like, well, let's use the talking phase. For the talking phase, there are no parameters.
Yeah,
that person is free to do whatever they want to do, even though you don't want to see it.
I have my answer.
Okay, go ahead.
It's all about transparency. Like honestly, no, I wouldn't care. Like obviously you were talking to other people, you weren't in a relationship. Why would there be rules about that? But here's the thing. If you explicitly withheld that information from me is different than if it just never came up, we never talked about it.
Like
You
you
know?
asked it and then they said no, and then now they say yes.
Yeah, like if we've already had this conversation and been like, should we be exclusive or are we exclusive or are you seeing anyone else or whatever, even if it wasn't like an explicit I'm yours, you're mine kind of thing, if that conversation has happened and the answer and the truth wasn't told, then that's where I think there's a problem. But aside from that, like, of course not. Obviously, you've dated other people.
So for me, like I think I kind of agree with Emily. Like obviously you were not dating around, or you didn't have anyone with you because you were dating around. But I think it's the way that you portray that message. It's
Yeah.
like if you say, "Hey, I chose you because you were the best out of everyone," versus I chose, I want to make things official with you because I feel like we had a connection. Those are two totally different ways in how you say it, but they mean the same exact thing. And so how you say it, I think, is the way that affects people. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, because they're two totally different ways and they mean the same thing.
Yeah.
But just saying they mean the same thing coming from a guy, they mean different things going into the ears of a girl.
Well, that too. Yeah. Like I think it's just the way that how you say it, because they all mean, like, those two statements mean the same thing at the end of the day. It's just how someone perceives it.
Yeah, it's all delivery. And
Okay. So, all right. So the next question. So what about now where we have these dynamics now where we have rising degrees of hedonism? So I feel like these few of these documentaries about like people that are in polyamorous relationships, and I've always wondered, is that something that eventually will be commonplace, A, and sustainable, B?
yeah, I've always wondered that too, but I've honestly always worried about it more. I think that's nuts. I think it's crazy. And part of the reason is that I was raised Catholic, so polygamy is not something that I would practice or I understand what it is, but it's just crazy to me. Like, it's completely absurd. And I've read all kinds of articles about how like this is the new future and this is how humans were supposed to be, and I just don't believe in that. I don't get it.
So but let me put the caveat on it. I'm also talking about not like one person with two significant others, like not in the sense of like you're like one man of two wives, but I'm talking about like legitimately three people in a relationship. And I heard about this.
I saw some weird ass video. This girl had like 5 boyfriends.
See, that just seems. See, I think there has to be a number cap on it also as well too. Like you got like 7 people going on. I'm like, you're just getting one.
You're just getting gangbanged. That's all that's really
exactly.
going on.
Here's my question: are all 6 of those people in a relationship with all 6 of those people, or is that girl in a relationship with?
That's different. So I'm talking about the instance I'm talking about is true polyamory in the sense of like you're all dating each other. Like, cause I saw that like apparently it's a thing. Like it's in its early stages now. Let's say it's in its infancy, but there are people like I saw one where I think it was one guy with 2 girls, but they were all dating each other. So the girls,
I think that's nuts too, and I think it's a cop out. I think it's a cop out for being able to like just be with one person. And my issue with that is, again, so I believe that marriage is a sacred thing and it's to be taken seriously, and you don't marry someone if you don't want to only be with them. So while all these relationships of multiples may not be getting married, I think that it doesn't make sense to give yourself to multiple people, especially at the same time when you're not committing to anyone. It's a cop out. You're committing to someone until say this person pisses you off. Okay, well, I'm going to go hang out with them now because they're fine with me right now. Or tonight I'd rather be with this person, but next week we can hang out or whatever. Or and maybe they all hang out together, whatever. I think they were all 3 of them were living together as well too. So I left that out. I think that's just as absurd. I think, again, still a cop out. They're not all going to be together in every single instance in conversation. And
so what do you guys think about the idea of like, so there's some clinical psychologists that suggest that actually monogamy is a social construct where we eventually developed monogamy, but innately human beings we're not programmed to be monogamous. That's the thing, because social contract.
Wait. So monogamy. How do it's so hard to say. That was man-made.
It's a social construct.
Yeah.
It's a social construct. It's not something that we're programmed to do. Like when you first come out the womb, you're not like one partner. They say, like, for example, Jordan Peterson talked about as men. For example, men are actually programmed to spread their seed. So it's a very selfish innate, obviously, trait. But the thing is, like,
Oh, that makes
I'm
sense.
sure I'm butchering it. We're programmed to spread our seed. So
Right.
the most effective way to do that would be, of course, with what? Multiple partners. So this is talking about like way back in the day of like, I guess like the Neanderthals or, Homo erectus or whatever they were called prior to, the modern day man. So at some
Right.
point along the lines, we started developing the monogamy.
Wait. So what if this is a way to control population size?
I mean, that is the thing. I mean, China did it for a while. Remember, they did the 2-child
Mm.
policy. That's the thing. They did the 2-child policy where like there was population control, but like that also has something that's very different in terms of like culture.
So
Because
I
Yeah.
think that monogamy is important to building an individual relationship, and here's why.
Okay.
I have never had a relationship with one person that is exactly identical with another person, even if I've given those two people the same amount of effort. And that's across the board with all relationships. No two friendships of mine have been the exact same. Like it's all relationships. So I think having that opportunity or being able to commit to being with multiple people takes away from what you're giving to one relationship. It takes away from that opportunity to commit and try and give all of your everything to one person. So I think the monogamy comes from wanting to have that relationship with just that one person and finding the one that is best. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you're saying that you think monogamy at the end of the day is the best way to develop a relationship with an individual
Right.
versus bouncing back and forth. So I guess when I was listening to this, when I was listening to this clinical psychologist, what he was saying was that I guess because honestly, this is not. I'm not saying this is a normal thing. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like polyamory is the way of the future or any evidence suggests this is where people are going. But
Well,
the
and I mean,
taboo,
what do we know, you know?
you never know. The taboo on it is being released a little bit, and it's coming in the form of open relationships now, where now that's evolved to even to open marriages,
That's
where
how we're going to populate Mars.
just everyone is just it's a free for all.
Yeah.
And you're getting it.
That's that. Yep.
But
That's the way.
But what they were saying was that basically like sometimes they have like people that have very opposite personalities, but they love each other. So they had like multiple couples that were in love with each other. Like, but for example, one person was asexual. She had zero desire really to have sex. Like and it was more associated with low libido, but she just was asexual. But she was in love with this guy that also had a high libido. And he was just like, the dude was this horn dog. The dude was like, he loves his obviously partner, but he has his physical and biological demands. So how did they get around this? I guess you can say what potentially would have been a hurdle. They introduced kind of this polyamorous relationship where she allowed him not to go out and sleep with other people, but there as a specific individual, and there were very specific rules around it.
But
And
see,
they
I still think that is where I think that just proves my point right there, that this girl or whoever that third person was, they get the physical benefits and there's rules regarding. Whereas if you're just with the one person, like you have rules that you build together between just the two of you, and there's no third party that's taken away from that or that's getting their own portion. Now, for someone who's asexual, it's not to say like, oh, you can't be with someone who's not also asexual, but
so you would
I
say,
feel like it's a matter of finding the right person. Now, not saying that that's, again, I agree.
well, does that make them does that make them not compatible? Because they love each other. Like they love each other. Like, I mean, from what they were saying, it's like they don't want to be apart. They don't want to.
And I think that's fair, and I can't speak to that. Like, again, I'm not in that situation. I can't pretend like I understand. But I think for me personally, that roadblock would tell me I love them. But it's okay to love someone and not be supposed to be with them. Like, there's obviously something or someone better suited for me or for them.
Okay. That's definitely one way of looking at it. Because I've always been in between in the sense of like I don't think I couldn't do a polyamorous relationship because of the way I look at relationships. Like when you're into a person, you want to be, that person is your everything, right? You want to
Yeah.
please that person, you want to love that person. And the thought of somebody else doing that to someone I love, to me, it's just like, it just
It's
doesn't sit
heartbreaking.
well.
It's like crushing.
But what if we, as a society, evolved to be, but that also stems from what they're saying about monogamy. Monogamy is also about possession. It's about the possessiveness we have of relationships. We see that person is mine. So what they're saying is that, like, a lot of times now you see we're kind of not shifting, but you see some of these other relationships. A key component of this is less of a possessive way of looking at love.
So
Where,
I have an interesting take on that, on how you just said it's like a possessive thing and that person is mine. Because for me, it's more like, this is going to sound like I don't value myself, but it's more like a being possessed thing. Like, I am theirs. Like, I'm supposed to be theirs. You know what I mean?
okay. So you want to give. So it's more selfless. Actually, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's a very selfless mentality where
I
you
feel
want
like
to
it's more personal. Like, I don't know. It's like, I'm supposed to be that. You know what I mean?
So you want to fill that role for that person.
Yeah.
So there is still, yeah, but there's still a degree of possessiveness because you're like, only I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So I
But
guess
I
I'm
think
not arguing. I'm just arguing I'm just saying, like, the devil's advocate, I guess, argument would be
no,
that.
you're right. You're getting exactly what I'm saying, because it's a different thing to be possessing. You know, it's like possessing, having that privilege, not possessing that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, what do you have to say about this, John?
Yeah, I mean, I can see the argument that, whenever you have, like, whenever you're in a monogamous relationship, the thing is that the person that you're with, I think, is yours, like 100%. Like, that's not possession wise in terms of like you own it, but like that's a part of you now,
Okay.
like,
You're each
and
other.
yeah, you're like a single entity.
Yeah, it's a group effort.
Two things combining, like the thing of marriage, combining to be one
Yeah.
single entity.
Yeah,
I
you're
think,
a deal now.
and I think that, I don't know if possession is the right word, but more so of like a symbiotic relationship where both of you guys, not feed off each other, but more so of help each other grow.
You complete each other.
Yeah.
So I wonder with after hearing both of your guys' points. So if relationships, like we've just talked about how relationships keep evolving, right?
Mm-hmm.
We evolve beyond that, because each generation has their style of doing things, right? So right now we're in our generation's style of doing things. I wonder what do you guys think this is heading? Where do you think guys think this is heading to? Where, because it's not going to be the same when, if you got, the future generation, like, if you guys want to have kids, let's say for example you have kids, like, our children are not going to do things the same way we do. I'm sure our parents look at us like, what in the hell is going on with these dudes? These guys are like out here texting hookups. I mean, people, like, I'm sure it's alien to them.
I mean, I think it's just a product of the time, like something for our time, at least. Like, social media was a really, really huge impact. What the fuck? That sounds like a motorcycle. Social media was like a really huge, like, part of our lives growing up. We used it for, again, MySpace, Instagram, everyone's on Twitter. And that's just, again, a product of our nature. That's just how we grew up. And so we incorporated it in different ways of our lives, whether that be dating or, news or whatever it is. Like, social media is incorporated into our DNA, as weird as that sounds. So if our kids, down the line, there might be something that is, again, foreign to us or alien to us, but that's just a product of their time. Like, in like the old times, like in the 40s or 30s, they didn't have social media. So what did they do? They did whatever they could. Like, a product of their time was, I guess, just going up to whoever you thought you wanted to marry or have a picnic with or whatever. You just went up to them and said, hey, you would like to do this. So we I think you just have to kind of assume that your kids in the future are going to do whatever's of their time.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to predict, kind of going on what you're saying, kind of hard to predict where this is evolving to. Because that's the part that I've been fascinated with because I always feel like our generation, we're in a transitional state. Like we're one of the few generations where we're a bridge to something completely crazy that's about to happen, whether it's technology or it just seems like everything's rapidly changing or social reform. So so whenever you get a chance to kind of pause like this and think about it, I mean, I'm always mesmerized by like, damn, things have changed so much. Because like all we've talked about today from MySpace and all that, and earlier on dating into now, things are pretty damn different, right?
All kinds
So
of different things are different. I think about this all the time, and I'll tell you which one strikes me the most is when I think back to school. When I was in just in high school, we were required to have a computer. And when I think about, I asked my dad once, I was like, how did you write papers? He was like, we had to go to the library and get only books and like find things. And I was like, that just makes no sense to me. Like things have changed so much because if I didn't have this computer, this would take me years to finish.
How long ago was that? Like
Did
roughly?
that happen? That conversation?
No, 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 no. Like him having to like go to a book, an actual book, and like having to write it out instead of a computer to
Oh, I don't.
research. Like 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at least.
So just, I guess like a mental exercise. Think of in that span of period between 30 years, we use social media now. So then what will be like the next big thing in 30 years? That's the thing that I think that no one knows like how it'll affect, obviously because it's in the future, but just because of that 30 time frame, that
mhm.
30-year time frame, there was such tremendous change that you have to, transition that 30-year period to now, and something will be different. Like I guess maybe you'll touch someone and then you'll just know everything about them. You
Oh my
know?
God, no.
I mean,
No.
that's not too far to think of what Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink. Man, be honest, like that is a reality where at one point we would be joking about that, but now it is a very real reality. And
Yeah.
that's the reason why we ask these questions because every
It's
time it seems like every time we stop to think about what's happening, you find out things have changed. So like even everything we've talked about today has kind of been like, okay, well, where was the transition period? Seems like we always miss the transition periods of everything. It's always
yeah.
like, okay, this is how
Like
it
all of
is.
a sudden it's just a thing.
Yeah, it's like, damn, well, online dating is a thing. Like Christian Mingle, like John was talking earlier, is a thing. Tinder is a thing. All these things are just wildly accepted.
Farmersonly.com.
Farmers only, dude. That's an actual thing. Or like I saw this thing on TV the other day. It's like I forgot
Like,
what the name of the
only
dating
in
site was.
Indiana.
Wait, what happened?
But it makes so much sense though. If I'm in a place where this is typically what people are doing, why not make a dating website for people interested in this one common thing?
Hmm.
Okay, I have a question.
Go
Do you
ahead.
guys think it's kind of unrelated, but sort of related? Do you guys think that time travel will ever exist?
Not in our lifetime, but I think it will.
Not in our lifetime, and I don't think it will exist in the way that we think.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever exist, and here's why.
Okay.
Wouldn't someone have already traveled back by now?
I
What
mean,
if? So if you want to look at it that way, what if someone did, and then we're just a product of their
yeah,
nature?
like the whole
Wouldn't we know of it? Wouldn't someone know?
No, you don't, because it's always it's like that whole butterfly effect. If they change something,
ripple
change
effect. Yeah.
yeah, like
It goes into a
you're
different.
just
Think about Avengers Endgame. I don't know if you guys did. You see Avengers Endgame?
No, Martin just got me. Well, I don't know which one is that. I've seen
That's
several Avengers movies, but I don't know
the
which one.
last one. The last one that came out that made like $17 trillion.
Oh my gosh, I saw like the first hour when I was babysitting someone once.
Okay, so well, I don't want to. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm going to explain how time travel works in that universe, and I think that's the bit more likelihood if it's possible. Where essentially, if you were to go back in time, I don't think going back in time is actually necessarily possible for some reason. Maybe I can't wrap my head around it because you're undoing things. But I do think if you were to go, let's say, forward in time, you would create an alternate reality. So, like right now, for example,
Another
like how it
dimension.
works in that universe, we exist in a reality. So if you were to go time travel, you would now leave where we are, and you'd be somewhere different, and you'd meet different versions of us.
Like a different place in space and time. So like a whole different dimension.
I get similar to that because that's the best. Yeah, the best way to describe it is like you're meeting a different everything because everything is the same except a few things. Like I remember, like the way they explain it's like you go to a different reality, and there's still a John in that reality. There's still a Tadeo in that reality, but based on the fact that certain things happen differently, we're different. We're different people. Still physically the same people, but I don't know. Maybe something happened back in the day, and I decided never to go to college. So now I'm a bartender. Now I have to pick up the guitar, and now I'm a rock star. Like shit just changes, right?
Mm.
But so what would happen if you're say you travel back in time and you're in like this different reality? If you traveled back to where you came from, would you be in your original place, or would you be still in the new reality that you've created, but in the time that you traveled to? Does that make sense?
The second you do something that's different than what you did in that specific moment in time, you've created a new reality, an alternate new reality.
Can you escape that reality back to the other one?
You wouldn't be. Well, I don't know, because the way they said it, that's like you wouldn't be able to do everything exactly as you did to leave that previous reality. So you would come back to something different.
Right.
And that's what the butterfly effect is. That the slightest thing,
just not for everyone, just for you.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
So you could kind of alter the past, but not necessarily for everyone, just for you.
It depends on how you view time travel, because like what John was saying with the butterfly effect implies that the most subtle thing, like a butterfly, like a butterfly
gets eaten by a hippo instead of a cockroach, like that could affect it.
Like chain reaction that escalates to the point where even things on a bigger scale get changed. So like when you throw a rock in a river and you see those ripples, that small little thing caused such a massive change in such a large surface. So if I were to time travel, let's say back to even this conversation like today, and for whatever reason I decide to say something different, now the conversation has changed. Or I don't say things exactly in the manner in which I said it today, that is now a different conversation. Therefore, that scenario and that situation in the past is now different. So, I mean, I don't really know how we got on time travel, but yeah.
Because I'm the most easily distracted person. I think what it comes down to is if the time travel ever exists, I think it'll be illegal.
It better be. I mean, how could you make it illegal? Because I could be like, okay, screw that. I'm going back in time to make it not illegal.
Yeah.
I think I kind of want to talk about time travels next, because I feel like that could go so many ways.
Dude, that honestly would be the next topic we should talk about.
Time traveling?
How would it affect dating? Like, everyone would be screwing up their relationships because I'd be like, fuck, shouldn't have said that back in time. And then you change that. Now you say something instead. Fuck, shouldn't have said that. Go back in time.
That's an episode of Family Guy.
Dude, yeah. Or even that movie. Yeah. There was that Michael Bay movie that came out a couple years ago where the kid basically went back in time. Like, he went back and the movie started, I forgot what it's called, but the movie starts off with him seeing a photo of himself in his preschool photo. So he saw a photo of him as an adult and a photo of him as a child. It was wild. And you find out that, like, he basically it's a spoiler. It's a Michael Bay movie, so it's fucking shitty, so I don't mind ruining it. But he basically does everything right. He goes back in time, says all the right things to date the girl of his dreams, yada, yada, yada. But with one common thread throughout all time travel movies is that there's always cause and effect. For every negative thing that you take, every good thing you do, a negative thing has to happen. So the universe tries to balance itself out. So if you go back in time and you do, I guess go and get the girl, now something else happens. So then if you don't do that, then now something else. So no matter what you do, you're always going to have a balance, and that's a balance of good and bad. So, yeah. But I guess wrap this thing up.
Yeah, so let's, we have a question for the listeners, and I didn't come up with this question. Tadiwa did, so shout out to Tadiwa. For all the listeners, let us know what you think about this in the comments. But what would how would you feel if your significant other wanted to cheat, but they didn't? Instead, they told you, like, hey, I didn't cheat, but I watched porn. Does that, like, how does that play into the realm of, like, cheating and all that stuff?
Basically, they decided to, they kind of rephrased it. They decided to not cheat, and they didn't cheat as a result of I guess, expelling the urge by watching porn or masturbate. So I know the whole time travel thing probably threw everybody. They're like, "What the fuck are these guys talking about? Time travel and jacking off and porn?" It's like that's the puzzle minds, baby. That's how we do it.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about that, because I'm really interested to see what people say.
Your relationships are gonna be ruined by answering that question, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, but reminder for everyone, that's something that if you don't feel comfortable saying in front of your significant other, then don't say anything at all. But please do comment. That would be awesome. Well, thank you, Emily, for having the time to spend with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was so excited.
Yeah, definitely. It's fun talking. Yeah.
If you like the podcast, smash that like button, follow button on Spotify or whatever platform that you do listen to it. Follow us on our social media platforms. The Instagram is Puzzle Minds Podcast. Twitter is Puzzle Minds Pod. And our email, puzzlemindspodcast@gmail.com, where we do encourage everyone to submit a topic you think that we might discuss. Other than that, everyone stay puzzled.
Peace.